Hey everybody, and welcome to my sampler breakdown. This is probably going to take an hour or two. I mean, it took me 3 hours just to get this slide deck together and get my notes and thoughts together. So, yeah, it's going to take a little while, but this is basically what I just wanted to put together for folks that wanted a little bit more thoughts or feedback or context on this Excel spreadsheet eye chart that I made. I've already been getting some people asking questions about like, why did I rate this better than that? And that's really wasn't the intent per se, although I did go through and basically I ranked everything based on the, I'll say, total score that I came up with. And that was, I would say that total score is less an indication of me saying like, yeah, you should get it, and more just a indication of how feature rich something may be overall. So I mean, I'll go through and explain things as I get through them, but basically, I'm just going to order from kind of like the least feature rich, or maybe the harder to suggest for folks, and then the ones that might be easier. But you'll see things like I'm going to have some earlier things that I might suggest a lot, and be like, yeah, you should totally get this, because the intent of this was more to provide a list of devices that have any sampling capability, and not necessarily to say like that it is per se a sampler. So there's going to be a few things that might feel a little weird, but I still think they're worth discussing. So anyway, without any further ado, I'm just going to kind of get into it and start going through stuff here. So we see up here first, I got the Phonogene. You're gonna see a number of Eurorack devices, and personally, like whatever my thoughts on them um, are a little bit weighted because I decided to just get out of Eurorack as a format in general. And the reason for that was mostly because it just becomes a big money sink. I was spending a lot of money on it, and then I kept getting hung up on, okay, do I keep these things set up after I've done these really complex and interesting patches? Do I leave them set up forever, or do I tear them down? My behavior tended to be I would tear them down frequently, and then I'd be like, oh man, I forget what I did for this really cool thing and couldn't get it back. So it was just more me and like my style. People that are more into Eurorack or want to do cool stuff with it, like this is not me having any judgment on you. Like, absolutely do it. Anyway, with the Phonogene, a few things. By and large, I picked this up after I got the Morphagene because I really just wanted to experience it and play around with it. The Phonogene came out first, and it was kind of like one of these early Eurorack granular time stretching kind of sound abusing kind of devices. Not anywhere near as feature rich as the Morphagene, but I thought it was pretty interesting. But it also kind of just showed its age pretty quickly to me. The Morphagene, you could have several minutes worth of audio recorded, whereas the Phonogene was measured in seconds. I already have plenty of gear or even at the time, I had plenty of gear that was in that seconds kind of space. The quality wasn't great. I found it a little bit noisy to work with. So while it was interesting and fun and being able to kind of see how the Phonogene evolved into the Morphagene, it just wasn't something that like really worked really well, or it wasn't terribly interesting for me. So I kind of just put this in the space of, if you're looking for something that's in the Eurorack format, if you can get it for a good cost, it is mono. So that's something to keep in mind, that you're not going to get a stereo signal out of it. And for me, it didn't have a whole lot of like super interesting playability with it, because a lot of that's going to come from the external CV controls that you have to drive the different knobs and moving them. Um, it's fine. It was okay. It's kind of enough said about that one. Next up, pretty low on the list, is the S950. I do overall really like the sound and tone of the S950 myself. I think there's a lot of interesting things about it. One of the things is that when you are adjusting the pitch of a sound, it's actually changing the clock speed of the chip that's replaying the sample, which leads to a different style of sound, and almost gets it creates something that's just different. Whereas a lot of the newer devices, and if you're doing things on your phone or other stuff, it's using algorithms to basically synthesize what that sound will sound like. By changing the clock speed, you just get a very distinct character out of the S950 that very few devices either replicate or kind of ape or do very well. So I think from a 12-bit sound, the S950 is very good. It's a solid device. The filter on it, even though it doesn't really have any resonance that you can adjust on it to speak of, so it's a flat low-pass filter. It sounds quite nice, and it does share a sound engine with the MPC60. So if you're looking for that MPC60 sound space, it's not exactly the same, but if you're in that space, the S950 is not a bad choice. For me, the MPC60 was just like, it's always been like way too expensive, and I still look at it like, oh man, I'd love to have an MPC60, but I'm not going to get it, honestly. I will say though, for folks that are thinking about like the S950, or they're just like dreaming of like the magic of 12-bit, honestly, a lot of times that sound gets lost in the mix, because once you start adding in your filters and effects and other things, a lot of that magic that was there for making it 12-bit is going to kind of get swept away or washed away. So unless you're working in like a very specific genre, or you're really pulling things back so you can highlight and emphasize the sound of the S950, or even to other devices that are similar in this space, I'd be careful, because it's a lot of work to learn how to use these older samplers. They're not always straightforward and easy. The S950 is actually, from an Akai in general, I find to be pretty easy to work with. But you can see, like, there's a lot of number pads that you're going to be clicking on to type in numbers. It's not, you only got one dial, so it's not super fun to dial things in and move around the interface in the device. But that said, it is pretty nice. There are some effects, like doing some of the warping and time stretching kind of effects and algorithms running them. You're going to get up and go get a sandwich or get like a cup of tea or coffee or something, because it takes a while to process audio on these older devices, and you'll absolutely get an interesting, unique sound out of it. But all I could say is just be careful, guys out there. Like, it's easy to go like have the dream, and then the reality is much different. Magneto here, it's not really billed as a sampler. It's really billed as a tape effect, and it's got it simulates having 4 heads on a tape, so you get kind of like this quadruple tap if you dial it in to work that way. And it's also got like some pretty nice wow and flutter, crinkle effect, and some other some reverb that are all quite pleasing, and I like them. I ended up having this for quite a while, and would run a lot of audio through it, especially when I was doing my Euro rack setup mixed with the MPC and doing the tape grain glitch work. I was very interested in the modeling of kind of the physical sounds, and trying to replicate kind of like that lossy nature of granular synthesis and working with tape, and just having like some weird glitchy things going on. So Magneto was absolutely a important part of that. But one thing I would say is, like, it's got a lot of CVs on it, you can see, and not all of them are really, I would say, they're not either attenuated well, or some of them you might be better suited to routing to CV and controlling something different. Like, it'd be really cool if you could adjust where all of the tape heads were at any given time to kind of slide them in and out. But I mean, as it is, it's fine. It sounds great. It is a great sounding module. It's also kind of big, and given all that though, it's quite playable. I like the knobs. The knob size was perfect. Really nice to work with. Up next, we've got LoFi Dreams. I just picked this up this year. I've seen when Dig Dug DIYs put a few of these out from time to time. Always got like something new and kind of weird and interesting for different, whether it's effects or samplers, mixers, or other stuff. So Dig Dug DIY is somebody that I usually keep an eye on for what he's up to. I would say this is a device that has a lot of character to it, and that can be both good and bad. This is very focused on being a 4-sample sampler and playing back things. You can do some looping tricks. There's like some kind of like granular types of tricks that you can do with it, but you have to know a lot of button combinations to get it to work. And I would say where some devices of this nature are more tuned towards having a lot of acceptable effects, this is not tuned at all. It is 80% sounding pretty terrible usually, and it's up to you to go kind of dial in what's the right sample rate and what's a good sounding pitch, and getting some of your filter and cutoffs to like help get rid of some like the really nasty artifacts. So this is a device that it rewards a lot of practice, use, and experimentation, and it will absolutely punish you if you don't spend any time working on it and learning the device by itself. So just something to be aware of if you decide you want to go check it out. But I would say absolutely a fun little box, and Dig Dug DIY is always like skinning these things differently. The one that I've got, I didn't take a picture of. It's actually got a map of, I think, New York, if I remember correctly. It's got like a map that's been kind of glued onto the box. Up next is the 4MS WAV Recorder. I will say in general, I love this device. I think I owned 3 or 4 of them at one point, and as a end of chain utility, this is great. I would say that a lot of people don't take into consideration that you're going to be playing things, whether it's Eurorack or other spaces. It's very easy to do something that's really cool and never be able to repeat it again. This is because you might have accidentally bumped something. You may have just been like dialing in an effect, and you're just never going to get it at the exact same time that you got it. So having something that's just recording what you're doing all the time gives you a really good way to go back and like take those little snippets. It can be a lot of work because if you're playing for 2 hours, you're probably not going to want to go through 2 hours of content. But if you just know like, okay, that was really cool, I need to stop it so that I can go back to the tail end of the recording and then just kind of like start it up again. Make your life, it can make your life a lot happier where you just know you don't miss something. Or I've had this happen before as well. You think you did something really cool, and then when you go back and play it back and listen to it, you're like, oh, that wasn't actually as cool as I thought it was, which can take a lot of that heartburn and concern when you're like, oh no, I can't do this again. And you go listen, you're like, actually, it's worth kind of moving on. So this is another one that, and you're going to see a trend here for any of these Eurorack devices. I want to talk about them because I think they're important to talk about, but I have sold almost all of my Eurorack off. What I have left is up for sale, but I have been just selling it off because I'm trying to get out of the Eurorack format. It's, I don't know. I would say it's not healthy for me. It's an easy format for me to just kind of keep pouring money into and then printing out stacks and stacks of manuals and trying to learn everything. Up next, we got the Korg Microsampler, and I got this a lot because I still really like Korg. I think Korg has a lot of great products, but the Microsampler is a product that I think I expected more out of it. At the time, they did a lot of advertisement about how the connectivity with the iPhone was so great and you're gonna be able to sample and do all these things. And it was just, I think it just was at the wrong point, either for me or just kind of in the broader history of devices, because like a lot of the connections were getting phased out. Things were changing. It was like the pre-lightning cable it was like that wider one was coming out. The phones were just starting to get larger, so they wouldn't fit in the 2 slots that are on there. So, and all of the knobs are recessed. I suspect that was done for performance reasons. So if you're performing live with this device, with the Korg Microsampler, you wouldn't accidentally bump a knob, but I found it really annoying to use. The buttons were kind of rubbery and mushy, and overall, I just didn't really like the keybed either. It just wasn't fun to play, although I did really find like, you can see there's like all the red dots going across above the keys. They all have like text above them that would allow you to know, like, are you modifying an envelope or for a filter or amplitude, or are you like doing other operations on your sample? So it is a very competent and capable device. It just wasn't for me. Um, since I had sold it off, I did learn actually from a few people in the blind community that because it was so one-to-one for all of the features and it was so highly consistent for usage, that they've actually been able to learn how to use it despite not being able to see the screen or some of the feedback. So this is a device that I think is interesting to note because a lot of devices are not easy to learn what all of the configurations are. And if you're not getting that visual feedback, it's easy to not be able to work with it or use it. Anyway, yeah, it wasn't a device for me, so I ended up selling it. The Akai S1000, I do still have this. I have it pretty much fully upgraded. I don't think there's really, besides maybe getting an external SCSI hard drive for it, I don't really know that there's much else I can do with it. The S1000 did not support having an FX card, so you couldn't get like the delay or reverb. You need the S1100 if you want to get the FX card. That was something that was added in later into the design of it. I do like it. The extra memory that you have for 32 megabytes of memory maximum is really nice, and it's a breath of fresh air compared to the roughly 1.5 megs of memory that you have on the S950. So, I would say like if you're looking for an old sampler, the S1000 is like a really solid device. The inputs are pretty clean, and it's using maybe not the most modern algorithms for doing pitch shifting and time stretching, because it is an older device, but the way that it works, it does sound pretty good, if a little bit different. Another thing of note for it, and this is just me from doing experimentation, is if you load up older S900 and S950 sample libraries into it, they actually sound crisper, cleaner, and clearer than playing them on the S950. Now, if that is something that you want or not will vary on what you're trying to get out of it, but it's just something I want to let you know is for folks that are interested in the S900 and S950 sounds, you can very easily load them up and get them imported on an S1000 and listen to them. And if you just put like a bit of low pass filter on it, you can get fairly close to the sound of the S950 and S900 just because it's kind of taking some of that edge off but when you go load it, you'll see like it has in the menu, it's showing you that it's doing some processing to convert from the older S900 and S950 format over to the newer standard. So it just kind of depends on what you're looking for, but I do think that the S1000 is a solid sampler option. Up next, get the Zoom H6. Technically not a sampler, but it absolutely is doing sample duty. As a multi-track recorder, it is absolutely solid. I really liked it as a device. I just had some very specific problems with it that I couldn't solve, and it was causing me some issues recording my audio for my videos that I was posting up on YouTube when I first got started. So it was really nice because I could hook it up over a USB to my iPhone and then use my iPhone as an overhead camera. But when I was hitting about -6 dB or beyond, it was clipping very terribly, and I'd go in and look at the WAV files. So I was really always recording at about -12 dB, which was immediately making all of my audio in my recordings sound quieter. Not something I wanted. And like the first 50 to 100 videos are just like very quiet. So I've been spending time trying to fix that. I'm always tweaking my audio, trying to figure out what works better, what doesn't. But that was a real problem for me. I think for most people, though, that are looking to do like band recordings, or you need, 6 different tracks of recording, it's a great device. You can get the adapter that will switch it so that instead of having 2 mics on the front, it'll have 2 extra XLR combo inputs. It provides phantom power, so if you want microphones, you can do that. You can hook instruments up to it. It's very competent and versatile. I would say if you're looking for a multi-track recorder that you can record things in and play them back, absolutely worth looking into. Up next, the Mood. This is I was trying to decide whether I put this on the list or not. because it does do sampling, but I wouldn't say it's necessary. It's kind of like in the H6 space. It's not really a sampler. It's not intended for that. But I really like the Mood. Like as a basically what it's got is a buffer that is based on what the bottom middle clock knob setting is how quickly or how slowly it plays through the buffer. So you're basically adjusting the sample rate of that buffer, and then it's you're tapping a button to tell it that you want to start having it switch over from recording to playing back the buffer. Sounds all kind of boring to some extent, and kind of is, but there's a magic to it that once you do that and start doing pitch shifting, you can get some really interesting granular style effects out of it, whether you're throwing beats into it or chords or pads or other, like just synth sounds, whatever. I just always found there was like something interesting to find and explore at using it as kind of like this micro sampler where you're just getting like little snippets and then figuring out settings to adjust it to play things back. And then it still has beyond that an effect. It's only one effect, and you can choose what you want, whether it's a delay, reverb, or slip. And when you have those on, that will further augment the sound, and you can just get these crazy. It's really great, I found, for doing ambient sound design. Because of the nature of how it's picking stuff out of the clock, you can also get very odd, sometimes amazing, sometimes awkward rhythms out of it. So you run like a drum loop through it and just hit the button to tell it to start playing back whatever you were feeding it. And you just never quite know what it's going to do. Sometimes you'll, as I said, like might be 80% of the time you're like, it's not a very good drum rhythm out of it or whatever it's done to go mess with it. But a good portion of the time I was like, at least enough of the time I was like, this sounds really cool. I want to use this in a track and go do something. So from a kind of random inspiration space, absolutely, I would suggest go check out the Mood. Up next, we got the Microgranny 2.5. I think the picture here says 2.0, so the picture is wrong from what I had, but I did have a Microgranny 2.5. I really liked it. It has a very interesting sound set, and it is an 8-bit sampler. So if you're looking for like that crunchy 8-bit, almost like that old PCM, like just bit crushed kind of sound, it can do it for you. More interestingly, it is a granular 8-bit sampler, which means any of the granular stuff you're looking to do, it can do a lot of those things. You don't get as many grains as the more advanced synthesizers might do for you, but you get 6 slots and you get multiple pages or banks that you can go play. The thing I didn't particularly care about this device, though, is the knobs are not terribly accurate. Like you're sitting there turning the knob and it just starts jumping all over the place. Some of the settings that don't have a lot of value range to it, it was fine. But like some of the ones that go from like, I don't remember if it was like 1 to 127 or if it was to 256. I think it was 127. I think it matched MIDI CCs. But you'd find like sometimes like you'd be trying to just like turn a little bit and it's jumping all over the place. And it wasn't terribly fun for that. But from a sound perspective, it sounds great. Like if you want an 8-bit crunchy granular sound, it is absolutely a great device to get. So I'd say go check it out. The LED display was passable. And you'll see some other devices on the list here. Sometimes it's just what you get. Like to try and keep the cost down, this is what some of the manufacturers are doing. So kind of into it, but I ended up ultimately selling it. Up next, the SP202. On this, having only 2 knobs is a real bummer. The limited number of effects is a bummer, but I would say if you're looking for this, you're probably reaching out to get this because you want the specific lo-fi through hi-fi through lo-fi 2 sound. There's 4 different basically sample rates that you can choose to play, and then based on whatever you have for your effect configuration and whether you choose mono or stereo is going to depend on what your polyphony is. You can get all the way down to 1 note of polyphony where you can only play 1 sample, which is a complete bummer. But on the flip side, I would say most people that are reaching for the SP202, they're doing it because they want that specific sample rate and crunchy sound. Problems, though, are the inputs on almost every single SP202 I found are super noisy. I've tried playing around with trying to resolder or adjust some of the connections to see if it's just a ground loop issue or something else. I've even just plugged it in with a ground noise isolation, and it's generated more noise for some reason, which tells me that there's just some kind of problem with whether it's mine specifically or in general. There's just some issues with the device that I don't know personally how to go fix them and adjust them. So if you're looking for this, check out the sound. This is, I will note, similar to the Akai S950, that the pitch here as an adjustment is actually changing the clock speed of the chip that's playing and reproducing the sample when it's playing it back. So it's not going through an algorithm to pitch it up and down. It is actually adjusting the clock speed, which is the important reason why this is interesting, is because it will give you kind of a smoother sound. It is very different than what I would say the 202. The 202 sounds very different from the SP303 and 404 variants, except for the Mark II. So there is some interesting things to warrant there. I also actually really like the low pass filter on it. The resonant filter, there's basically a low pass filter and then a resonant filter. They're both fine. I've used them end of chain for certain performances I've done before, and it can sound pretty nice. The delay effect is pretty terrible because it is linked to the length of your sample and does not generally do what you want it to do, although there are some weird performance tricks you can go do with it. But yeah, if you know what the SP202 is and you like the sound of it, or you just kind of like that lo-fi sound in general, I probably would pick the SP202 over the S950, a lot because of the price difference, but also a lot of people that I know that are using these older style devices are basically using it as a transitory drop a sample into it and then just play it back and just record it out, or do like a little bit of effect or pitch shifting or something and record it back out. That's something that otherwise to do a lot of the work in the device itself just becomes very cumbersome. So just a thought. The Lubadh, this is a 2-track tape recorder style device. I really liked it, but it does suffer from the Eurorack sell-off that I did 2 to 3 years ago. I think this year is when I finally kind of was like, I'm done. But I was actually working on building out a 4 to 8-track OP1 style Eurorack recording setup, and it very quickly got super expensive as I realized just how many utility devices I would need to put all of this together. I actually only had 2 Lubadhs. As I said, I really enjoyed them. Very fun scrubbing through recordings, very fun like scrubbing and doing pitch shifting and setting stuff reverse and just kind of like making like this just organically moving tracks. I thought it was a really fun device for that. However, have I would say for folks that are looking to do what I was trying to do, there's cheaper ways to do it. I would probably look at software, but if you're in the Eurorack space, if you don't have a Lubadh and you just want like to record 2 tracks, or you just need to be able to record like a mono track once in a while, absolutely check it out. It's a really solid device, and you can get a lot of fun things done with it. The Kaossillator Mini 2S, I picked that up a little bit. I got this year, a little bit after getting the Kaoss Pad Mini 2S. I was hoping to. It has some pretty good loop recording capabilities to it, and I just wasn't paying attention when I ordered it. I was hoping that I would be able to record a line in to it to use like external synths or use like the Dirty Wave M8 or something else to be able to record into it. Good news is you sort of can do it, but it is a mic input and you have to reduce the volume so low to make sure that you're not distorting that input, that it's really not super valuable to use it in this manner, and causes a whole lot of other problems by doing that. So I've kind of just settled on using the Kaossillator Mini 2S as a sound source from time to time. I'll probably just go through and just record all of the sounds off of it that I want to record, and then decide if I want to sell it off or, just put it in my box of stuff that I may come back to later. But effectively, I would say because the input is a mic input and it's only mono, it makes it immediately a lot less valuable to me. So even though it's got like a really good sound set, and it is quite playable and fun to play, it's not really what I was hoping for, which I think why so many people bought them, got excited, made YouTube videos a long time ago about it, and then promptly never talked about it again. It's just my guess. Um, the next one, the Akai Z8, also have. I do still have this. I really like this. And if anybody's out there that you haven't had the opportunity to record sounds at 96 kilohertz or 192 kilohertz, absolutely spend some time to go through your devices and see if you have any that can do this. I don't recall, but I don't think the Z8 goes up to 192 kilohertz. It might. And I do know it goes up to 96 kilohertz. The reason why is because if you record audio at that high of a frequency, it's not always the case, but you can often take things that are analog sounds, and it doesn't have to be an analog synth. It could just be you like take a bell or you record a guitar riff or something else, and there is so much harmonic content that we just as human beings can't hear because it's over that 20 kilohertz rate ish, 2022, whatever. I don't know. I'm old enough that I'll be lucky if I'm much over 20 kilohertz. Anyway, you get if you record at such a high frequency, you can then pitch things down and bring that. You could have them and then have them again. You could play them at a quarter speed or an eighth speed, and there's just like a very interesting tonality and things that come out of them. And the Z8 is just been it's one of those like what I would consider one of the last great rack mountable samplers. It hits you can go up to 512 megabytes of memory, which for almost anybody should be plenty. It has a higher sample rate. It's close to the right level of connectivity. Like it would be really nice if it had USB, but it's got plenty of MIDI inputs, plenty of audio in and out for it. You can do a lot of cool stuff with it. So broadly, I would say like if you're just looking for something that you could have if you wanted like an actual physical sampler, the Z4 and the Z8 are both great devices to go check out. Beyond that, though, yeah, you're not going to get VST support for it. You're over USB. You're going to be having to figure out using that front USB jack for moving files around because it's not easy to transfer stuff around. So it does have some snags to it that make it easy to say like, if you're not into all that, don't get it. But on the flip side, it does do a great job playing samples back and having a lot of that crystal clear clarity that you might be looking for. Up next, the Mood Mark II is everything that the Mood I wanted out of the Mood and more. Excuse me. It does a lot of really cool things, right? One, it's stereo. It's got a larger buffer, so you can also record in at even far higher, a lot more higher quality at different sample rates. And it's also pretty neat because if you plug it into MIDI, and it is basically just the MIDI jack is a Type B TRS MIDI connection. So if you have an adapter, you can switch Type A to Type B. But you can then put it into a mode where you can play whatever your buffer recording is as a synthesizer. A lot of really cool stuff you can do with it. So I would say everything I just said about the Mood, where like you can go make like really cool sounds, nice fun exploration of audio. It's the same, but it's got even more clarity to it and more sound and just like all these like little hidden features that are worth digging into and exploring. as a nice little hybrid granular synth kind of sampler. I typed that wrong. Should say Kaoss Pad. Let me fix that while we're here. Kaoss Pad 3 Plus. I picked this up this year. I had been a very long time Kaoss Pad 2 user. I had a Kaoss Pad 2 paired with my MPC 1000 and actually an Access Virus, I want to say C, Access Virus C. And I used that to a ton. That Kaoss Pad 2 was a workhorse for me playing. I'd play different patterns on the MPC, then you route it out to the Kaoss Pad, not the Kaoss Pad, I'd route it out to the Virus to play them like through synth sounds, do filter sweeps, do things, and then start using the Kaoss Pad to whether using like the loop effects or filters or delays or whatever, just to add effects in, and then record that back into the MPC. Great little device. It does technically have a sampler on it. You can record samples and loops with it. I think it's totally fine, but it's not. I don't know. Personally, I wouldn't use it as a sampler. I'd be saying to most folks, if you have anything else as a sampler, it is probably a better sampler. There are tons and tons of effects on here, though, and there's plenty of effects that you can play with and load into it. You've got favorites. You can affect how wet or dry you want the effect to be when it kicks in. It supports DJ mixer mode and like a lot of other things. It's a very, very well thought out device. And I would say anybody that just wants a desktop effect unit, it's a really good choice. It'll get you it can kind of feel like there's a lot of repeating effects because there's a lot of different filters in there. There's a lot of different loop effects and granular and stuff, but they're all solid. They all sound different, and they all have interesting and unique purposes to them. So, yeah, definitely check out the Kaoss Pad 3 and 3 Plus. Even the 2 is really good as well. I haven't gone into like any of the more modern Kaoss Pads, so don't have any experience with those right now, but definitely just go look into it. I think there's interesting stuff to play around there. Next, the MPC 60. This is actually one of the few things on the list that I've never actually bought, sold, or otherwise owned, but I have spent a fair bit of time with one before. I had somebody that I used to have access to. They would let me use the MPC 60 from time to time. Got a pretty good amount of use with it. I really enjoyed using it, but it is absolutely a device that is a product of its time. It's probably far more, it has a lot of features that are more advanced than what the interface will comfortably let you do with it. And I would say if you could get one cheap enough and were able to maintain it, it's probably worth considering getting into, especially if you can just get it repaired, it's going to probably double in value. That said, I'm not spending $2,400 to go get an MPC 60 as much as I would love to have one, because I think it would be really fun to get back into, help document, talk with people about it, and all that. I do like the 12-bit sound, but I will also say again, it's very easy to lose that special sound in a mix, especially the way modern mixing is done with a lot of compression and effects and other things on it. So if you're going for a more pulled back sound where you're letting the MPC 60 do a lot of the work, or maybe you're pairing like an MPC 60 with like a S950 or like an EMU sampler, or from like the 80s or something, and not really drowning everything in effects, or filter, doing like EQing and filtering, it can really shine through. Otherwise, you're probably spending a lot of money for something that you could simulate pretty well someplace else. But yeah, I mean, it's a cool device, but just be prepared for it being harder to understand and needing to use a lot more numbers and math to work with. Up next, the SP303. This is probably what I would consider the maybe after the SP404 Mark II, but it's around there. I would say this is probably one of the most iconic SPs in my mind. The 303 just has that right mix of really fast sampling, and it's just got like a lot of effects that you are pretty much staples from in the SP404 and then going into the Mark II. That said, the sequencer on it is pretty terrible. I wouldn't want to force anybody to figure out how to do something with it. The polyphony's not really great, and how well you balance having 30, was it? I'm pretty sure it's 32 samples, right? I think it's like you get 32. It's fine. You can record quite long samples, but they just can't have a ton of, you don't have a whole lot of slots for it. And since we don't have projects to have multiple banks of them, it becomes a little bit of a bummer. So for me, I've mostly used the SP303 just as a temporary place to record samples at like different, the hi-fi, lo-fi rates, sample rates, and then also just use whatever the effects are. The pitch effect on the SP303 is pretty terrible. So if you're looking to repitch stuff, it's not my favorite sound. I suppose that there probably are people out there that would argue with me that they really like it. It's just not something for me, but that's probably because I've come through so many different sampling algorithms that I kind of prefer some over others when you're talking about pitching content up and down. That said, I don't think you're going to go wrong with the SPO303. The low pass filter sounds great. The vinyl sim sounds great. All kinds of just fun sounds that are with the three knobs. It's just, again, it's just iconic. Let's see, Disting Mark IV. So Expert Sleepers made several Distings. I think 1 through 4, and then there's the Super EX Plus Alpha, which we'll get to. But the Disting Mark IV has, at least at the time that I had one, 72 different algorithms that you could load into it. This varied from different utilities to recorders to effects to pattern playback. The Disting Mark IV is absolutely a Swiss Army knife, and anybody that's on the fence or that's into Eurorack and they keep thinking, boy, I can't afford this anymore, a Disting can be pretty nice. The problem with it is that it requires, at least for me, I had to print out the manual, which was going over like 70, it was like 100 and something pages, going over 72 different algorithms that you can set it up to do different things. And I got a cheat sheet for it and just found that the menu diving got to be tough. And beyond that, it by and large needs it needs at least one, if not 2 or 3 other devices to really shine. And at some point, I just got enough into Eurorack that I realized I really appreciated discrete interfaces that maybe had one menu level deep that I had to figure out. And the Disting, it has a lot of depth in it, both a good and bad way. So anyway, I'm not knocking it at all. It just wasn't for me. The Korg Electribe ESX-1. This was the first. I'd played with Electribes a lot before, but this was the first one that I picked up. I did also get the EMX one at the same time. I'd hook them up together, build out some sequences, and try and do some performances. I really, by and large, like the sound of it, and I think the valve force is like, it's just really fun. Like, it allows you to get parts of your mix to punch through and highlight them as you're playing things, which is really cool. And the thing I didn't like though is the knobs are not they're not the rotary encoders. They're the ones that, like, as you turn it, like, it will jump to whatever the value was. It had some things to kind of show you when you were at the right value or not, but it just made some of the performativeness of the device, and it just kind of impacted the being able to perform with it. And the sequencer itself is just a 16-step sequencer. So while there are tricks and ways to move things offbeat, it wasn't a terribly fun thing to kind of work with. I know a lot of people that liked it as a groove box. For me, it just became something that I just recorded samples off of and then moved on and decided to sell it. So is it, there's nothing wrong with it, and I think there's plenty of people that have fun with it. But the was it smart media, I think, is the format for it, coupled with like it just is another device that kind of was at the wrong spot of the release cycle. Could have benefited from having like USB or some other like SD card technology or something, and instead, from what I remember of it, it just kind of hit this weird spot where, as everybody was kind of moving into software or further moving into it, it's like here's a hardware device that it fit a little weird, at least for, as I said, for me. The Chase Bliss Blooper is a very interesting looper. You get up to 8 tracks, and I kickstarted this because it just looked wild, wacky, and cool, and it turned out to be wild, wacky, and cool. I did a series of videos about the blooper. I don't know, maybe 15 or 20, just trying to show off doing some weird stuff with it. I don't think people particularly cared, but I had fun doing it. It is one of those devices. It's unfortunately mono only, and I really do hope that they release a Blooper Mark II that is stereo. But with that said, if you're looking for a looper that you can record a loop and then apply all kinds of interesting time stretching and filtering and glitchy effects to a loop, it is a no-brainer. Especially if you just want to do one loop at a time. If you're looking for something more advanced, obviously the RC505 Mark II is going to be far more up a lot of people's alleys, because that gives you up to 5 loops you can work with at the same time. But I'd say Blooper as like a single person performative looper with 8 layers allows you to do some pretty cool things if you think about how you can build up and then kind of jump up and down the stack. The other thing is there's a web app that allows you to go load up loops into it, and you can do quite a few interesting things by kind of loading things in and putting them in. So you could prepare content on your computer and then load those loops into the Blooper and still have a lot of fun taking those constructed loops and playing them back. The other thing to note here, I mean, there is a sampler switch, which I'm going to kind of ignore. Like, you can record a sample into it and do a lot of interesting tricks that you can do with the looping. But the normal input and the additive are both really interesting, as one allows you to keep layering on top of each other as you're building up a loop, and then the other one allows it to listen to what you're playing through an effect and re-record it back into the buffer, and you can stack it up in some very interesting ways. So it gives you kind of 2, arguably 3, if you're talking about the sampler, ways to use it as a device and create just a lot of very interesting sounds. Up next is the Kaoss Pad Mini 2S, and while it has some of the similar problems, I would say, as the Kaossillator Mini 2S, in that it's not a great looper. You can record samples and you can record loops, and you can tell it to record things that are post effects. The important part, though, is instead of having a mic level line input that is mono, it actually does have a proper stereo line level input. And because of this, I've been able to pair this with the Dirty Wave M8 and the Roland P6 in a myriad of ways and do all kinds of fun effects. So just like the Kaoss Pad 3 Plus as a desktop unit has been great for me for doing some performative stuff, I'd kind of say the Kaoss Pad Mini 2S, I wouldn't call it a best of Korg effects per se, but they have really taken a lot of the good ones that maybe aren't as processing heavy and require some of the newer hardware to do the manipulations and things. So from a sampler standpoint, which is what the S is adding on the end of the 2S, it's passable. But as an effect unit, it is absolutely great. Like, if you're looking for a portable effect box to pair with just about any device, This one's a pretty good one. The only caveat to it is it does not have a MIDI in and or out, so you can't record it can record a performance internally as you touch the pads. You cannot, however, record a performance as MIDI onto another device to then play it back, and you can't do like you have to do all of the switching of effects yourself by hand. You can't program that someplace else. So a little bit of a bummer, but it is still out to the Kaoss Pad Mini 2, presumably, and the 2S that I do have are both solid effects to play around with as you're on the go. The Teenage Engineering TP7 is a multi-track recorder. It has 3 stereo line inputs, or you can hook it up to the Teenage Engineering TX6 and get 6 stereo inputs by bridging them over USB-C. Really cool. Technically, I would say you can kind of use this as a sampler where you can sample something and then play it back. It can record up to 96 kilohertz, which is a similar comment that I will make about the Akai Z8. If you record at very high frequency sample rates, you will be able to pitch things down an awful lot. The TP7 by default can play things up to twice as fast or half speed, and it does have a looper, so you can do a lot of kind of fun things. And as you're kind of like playing around, experimenting with using it, if you want to think outside the box, for example, you could record a drum loop into it. You could then slow that drum loop down so that you could practice playing guitar to it, or you could, record somebody playing guitar, pitch it down so that you could then practice playing it at a slower speed and playing along with them. Obviously, if you're not pitching in full octaves, you're going to have to figure out what scale and key you're in potentially as you do that. But I would say that there's a lot of interesting things to do with it. That said, it is incredibly expensive as a device. I personally like to record stuff on it. I'll load up like MP3s, or I'll load up like vinyl, old vinyl would have been like scratch albums. So it's like just playing different beats or different hits and samples. I'll prepare my own samples for it and load it up and then just play them in, pitching them up or down, or kind of using the turntable piece to scratch it or whatever. So for me, I have fun with it. I know it's a luxury. It is very overpriced. And for most people, I would say probably don't bother unless you really think you'd enjoy the interface, but there's just way too many buttons on it. It's very easy to accidentally hit things and cause it to go off the rails. So it's a little hard for me to tell people you should go for that. The Rosum Assimilator, I've actually owned this 2 times. It is probably one of the best of the both worlds of hi-fi and lo-fi audio. It can operate at a very high frequency, and it can grunge up and drop your sample rates through the floor and bit depth through the floor. This is one of the ones that this is the first one on the list that I'm sad about selling off my Eurorack gear, because the Assimilator just has so much going for it. I haven't checked up to see, but I know at one point Rosum was talking about, after they created the Locutus, which is a additional module that anybody that has an assimilator should probably get. But once I got the Locutus, or once the Locutus came out, they had said that they might actually make like a desktop synth or something with it, or desktop sampler. I would probably pick that up if it came out. This thing is just that good. It needs a better interface. You can see with all the CV jacks, it really lives and breathes by how much CV input and output you're willing to put into it, and it is just a beast unto itself. It can emulate, and Rosum would know best, an awful lot of just classic sounds from different eras. They've gotten the manual like where you should dial things in to get suggested best results. So the Assimilator is something I would absolutely very highly recommend as a sampler for anybody that, especially if you're in the, mostly if you're in the Eurorack space, but it sounds great. Up next, we have the Radical Technology Spectralis. I don't even remember what year I got this, but I got it when it first was announced and came out, and I thought I was going to love it and found myself going back to the MPC space. Very unique sound, very capable synthesizer and sampler. But that you can see where that LED strip is. It was just characters that were displayed there, and it made it kind of obtuse to work with. Sounded great. I kind of put this in the very boutique space. There weren't a ton of these sold. My understanding is they did a reissue afterwards because it was using smart media. They did like a panel reface that you could do and switch it out so that it used SD cards instead. So you have a more modern storage management system. So overall, I did like it. It was pretty fun to program, but like all the buttons and everything, the way it was laid out just didn't work for me at the time. If I was able to mess with one now, I'd probably be able to do a lot more interesting things with it. So I think it was ahead of its time, and it was ahead of just me. I just wasn't prepared mentally for working with it, so I ended up selling it off because I just wasn't using it to anywhere near even like the 10% capacity of what it could do. So that's on me more than probably the device itself. But I don't know if anybody's out there and has one. I'd love to hear what your thoughts are on it because, as I said, I just put it in the really cool. I was hoping to do more with it, and it just didn't. It didn't knock it out of the park for me, sadly. Another Eurorack piece of gear here. Not quite a sampler per se, although you could freeze the buffer with beads. So mutable instrument beads. I don't know that this was the exact last mutable instruments released module, or if it was it was at least near last, and it was basically a love letter to Clouds. So Clouds was kind of this granular synthesizer with a really good reverb on it, and you could do just crazy wild stuff with it. Beads was taking that and pushing it into doing the same things, or maybe not the same, but very similar things you could do with Clouds. If you didn't plug any inputs into Beads, though, it would start itself up as a synthesizer, and then you could use all of the granular effects post that if you wanted to. It had some very interesting granular and slicing effects that you could do. So you could have it Beads can chop up incoming drums or other things. And with all the CV, you can automate all of this. So you can get crazy. And even if you didn't have CV, the knobs had their own custom automation algorithm so that you could have it subtly do automation over time. And similar to a lot of these lower, I shouldn't say low, but lower memory devices, it had a adjustable sample rate, which would then apply different tone and color to your samples that you're running through it as an effect. So you could basically use this as a sampler if you wanted to, but it was more of a granular texture space, and also then just bolted on all this other stuff that was, to me, very fascinating. I think it's too bad for the community in a broad way that the source for this was never released. But I'm not going to get into it, but for anybody that is interested, you can go research some of the stuff online. It's very unfortunate what happened to the owner. There are people out in the community just are not nice, and it's too bad that just a few people can really give people a hard time and make them quit doing things that they love. So anyway, I would absolutely say if you get a chance to get Beads, pick one up. I owned two as part of my tape grain glitch stuff that I was doing years ago, and it's another device that I do miss, but I'm also happy to, for myself, be out of Eurorack and slowly finding effects or chains that I can put together that kind of help simulate some of the features here. As far as the Electribe Sampler, I don't know, apparently I didn't learn my lesson with the Electribe gear the first or second or third times I was messing with them, but I did get an Electribe Sampler. I did like it. It's another one. It had very good sounds in it, very good sound device. Still hampered by the same types of problems that for me, I just didn't like. So you can see in the bottom left of this picture here, it's like a Kaoss Pad style effect that you could do, which was fun. That you could record like automation for that and do performance effects. It's again a 16-step sequencer, which was totally fine, but I don't know. I think for me, I just didn't like the limit of 4 bars for a loop. I mean, you can mute things in and out. Sure, it's fine. And then when you want to move to the next section of your song, you just change your sequencer to the next sequence in your track and bounce forward and backwards. But I don't know. I find like the Electribes, I've been like, oh, I'll have it for like a year or two. And then I just like, okay, I'm just going to record whatever sounds I want out of it and then move on and sell them. So while my time with it, I had fun. I also don't feel like I made like really interesting or compelling music with it myself. So kind of bounced off of it. So if you're looking for an Electribe, I'd say, like look at them, see which ones have interesting sounds, effects, and libraries for you. And don't get too hung up on it being a sampler or not, unless you really want to deep dive into learning how to do sampling. And my dogs are staring at me because they think it's time to eat. We're only halfway through this, so you're gonna have to be patient over there. All right, next up, MPC 500. I've been through 4 of these. I have bought and then sold 3 times, and I have one in the basement right now that is minty fresh because somebody was selling it and it was so low that I just thought I can get this. I can kind of coax it into shape and upgrade it, and if I really want to sell it, I can make some money on it. It is a very it is a nice sequencer. It's just as much polyphony of 32 note mono notes of polyphony as the MPC 1000. It sounds good. The pads are terrible. So like it might look kind of like a dense interface here. It's actually not that bad. By and large, if you like just practice with it, you can get pretty quick. But the inputs and outputs can need some love on some of them. Like they just can go. Excuse me. They can go and not be like that great. And then the pads tend to require you to just play at full level all the time, which some people are going to be fine with that and not worry about it. Others, if you have a problem, look at like the electric. I did a video showing like how to use electrical tape to add some spacers in there so they're more sensitive, and it makes it a lot more playable. The other thing is like it's because it's so much older. Some of the waves, and depending on what your sample rate and other stuff is, will depend on how well it is able to load it or not. Or you might need to convert all your samples and library over, and it only goes up to, I believe, 12 characters per sample, and then it just kind of borks or bonks out and doesn't work very well. So from a portability standpoint, I would say it's just about as great as you're going to get. Pair it with like a phone or iPad, and you can do all kinds of fun stuff with it. But it doesn't have USB connectivity that you're going to want to be able to have MIDI and or audio or a lot of other things. So it's kind of a tough one for me to suggest in general. But if you know what you're getting into, it's a pretty solid sampler, and plenty of people have done plenty of songs on them, so it can work. SP404, I would say, unlike the 202 and 303 that I really like, the 404 for me, and this is just me, I know a lot of people that love it. I'm just not that into it. I'll be honest, I've always been a 16 pad person, and it's not that I'm looking down at people that only have 12 pads per se, but I don't know. I just feel like frequently when I'm working on content, whether it's 1 bar or 2 or 4 bars, it's just natural to kind of break it up into 16 chunks and then just kind of see what you're going to work with. You can obviously, like kind of like the MPC 500, you can just ignore like the last 4 slices, or you can do other things and work just fine. But for me, I'm kind of like, I'm less into it. The effects here are just as consistently solid as the SP303, and it adds in some more. We got plenty of more sampling time. We got plenty of banks to work with. So from that perspective, I would say If you're really looking to focus more on sampling and resampling, you're probably better off to go with the SP404. If you're looking for an older SP, then the 202 or the 303. The lo-fi button on here is okay in my mind. And really, if you're getting this, you're probably looking at the effects and likely at the speed of sampling and resampling. Beyond that, for me, I really just picked this up because I wanted something to be able to go play around with and just see how it was importing sequences and samples from the SP404 into the SP404 Mark II. And surprise, like it worked fine. Like there wasn't anything really crazy about it. So I don't know. I'm on the fence whether or not I will keep it long term or not as a sampler, but as a piece of history, definitely important. And I know, as I said, I know plenty of people love it. Up next, the Iridium. If I had to pick like a synthesizer that I was like, if you can afford it, you should totally get it, I'm putting this in that list. It is quite a lot of people have described it as Eurorack level of complexity and patching things together. And like the mod matrix is crazy. They're still working on this, even though it's what, 6 years old now. From time to time, they do still update firmware to either fix bugs or add new features so that you can map things in new ways. It is able to do 5 different types of synthesis, so it can do like an analog style. You can do wavetables. It can do sampling waveforms. You've got this particle not sample synthesis. It can do. It's got this resonator synthesis. So you get into like physical modeling and FM synthesis and all this stuff. Like it's just it is. I typed in here. It's the Death Star of synthesizers in a lot of ways. Barring having a computer, like this is one of those synthesizers, samplers. I mean, it does granular synthesis. It does pretty much everything that I would want a single device to do, and has all of the knobs to back it up and get work done and be pretty quick about it. So I'm frequently not a big fan of the touchscreen. It's got the same or similar touchscreen as what the MPC Live and X have, but it's fine. It gets the job done, and it is by and large very well thought out. So if you're looking for something that just has a ridiculous amount of synthesis techniques on it, like this would get my gold star. From a sampler standpoint, I think you can do far cheaper. Brand new, an Iridium is going to run you about 3,500, and used you could probably find one for 1,500. So definitely a broad range, but put this in the space of this is one of the devices I would say like definitely gets like a very big thumbs up from me, and I'm still glad I haven't sold it and still have it. PO33. This is just if you guys haven't played with one, you should go find somebody that's got one or go borrow one or something. It is a fun little thing. It is. I put it personally above a toy. It has very good sound quality for being an 8-bit sampler, and the sequencer and pattern chaining is quite competent, and the punch-in effects for being able to kind of just flip sounds, really good, very immediate. It only has 40 seconds of sample time, but I have made plenty of really good tracks that people are like, wow, what did you do that on? And when I tell them I did it on a PO33, they're like, that is ridiculous. Part of that is because as a sampler, you can sample in multi-layered levels of content, allowing you to take, snippets of whatever you'd like, record it, you can send it out someplace, record it back in. It is a little fiddly to do for sure, but the PO33, I would say, as if you're just looking for something that if you've only got $100, it is absolutely a solid investment. And I would say it has some area, like the 40-second sample time limit can be a little bit frustrating, but it can be a very rewarding device to go work with as well. And I think it's going to tend to be, because of the price being lower, it can be a lot more kid friendly if you're looking for something that you want to get for, a kid or something that if they break it, it might be a little upsetting, but you're not going to be as upset as if they'd broken like a MPC or an SP404 Mark II or something. This might be the last Eurorack device I would say I really miss, but the Make Noise Morphagene was something. It was one of the early. So I got my introduction to Eurorack was through the Make Noise Gold shared system, and the Morphagene was in it, and I knew it was in it, and I was like, I want this. I want to get into granular synthesis more. All the stuff it was doing is very interesting. And as a device in general, it is very playable. A lot of the knobs, I would say, are better tuned for playing the device itself than the Phonogene. On the SD card, you can actually take it out and you can load up what they call reels, but you can load up different reels on it. So you have all kinds of sound banks. I had prepared stuff in Ableton Live, whether it was like drum loops or chops or other things for the Morphagene. It's got a config file, so you can switch it between playing as like a granular synthesizer to a looper or delay effect. Like you can do cassette delay. There's all kinds of fun stuff you can do with it. I do miss it a bit, but not so much that I would go build out another Eurorack setup. However, if it ever came out as a desktop effect or something, I might actually consider picking it up. But I don't think Make Noise is into doing bespoke desktop devices, so probably not going to happen. But I would say if anybody that's into granular and looping and that kind of stuff, you should absolutely check it out. Unless you don't want to get into Eurorack and get sucked into that, then just go either ignore it or go borrow a friend that has this stuff, borrow their gear for a while, get into it, and then just say, okay, I'm done, and move along. Similarly, the Super Disting EX Plus I don't miss, but another Eurorack device. This one's interesting. It's basically two Disting Mark IVs side by side. You can actually put into a mode where you can run it as two EX or Disting Mark IVs, and like each half is its own setting. This is fun and fine because basically it allows you to have two pairs or two different of the 72 or whatever it is pages worth of effects and utilities. Or you can put it into a mode where it's using both of them together and you're controlling it as one unit. So they have a granular synth and some other things. I haven't kept up with it, but I would say definitely a really nice device. The OLED display makes it much more readable for what the heck it's actually doing, but it still hits the same problems of you're probably going to need an awful lot of other devices, whether they're VCAs or envelopes or generators or other things, to actually make the Super Disting EX Plus do something interesting. That said, I still like it. I think it's a very capable device, and people that are in Eurorack, if you haven't checked out any of the Disting stuff, you should check it out and at least get a sense for, would you like the menu diving? Are you cool with it? Or are you in the like, no, that's not for me? Similarly, the ER301, I actually really like this. It's a device that is very programmable. Under the hood, you can, like, it's got an SD card. You can load patches onto it. It makes it very programmable. You can write code to make your own oscillators or effects or other things. And even though it's just got one knob and like just a set of buttons, that you could work very quickly for building up your own patches and effects and synthesizers and things with it. It's just that the display that's at the top just made it a little bit hard to kind of look through. But you can see there's a lot of input patch points and a lot of output patch points, and you could do some very crazy, complicated stuff with it. A lot of people would just describe this as a Eurorack in a Eurorack device, and it's hard to say that that's a wrong assessment because that's kind of what it is. I don't know that they're still being manufactured anymore, but when I sold mine off, the prices were starting to get kind of crazy, and yeah, I wouldn't probably go buy another one. I'd just start programming stuff in like Max for Live, or maybe go pick up Reactor, the latest version of Reactor, which is 5. I think the last one I was on was 4. But Native Instruments, please get back to updating Reactor. I'd love to see a new update. I'd probably buy it, which is Anyway, a weird way to ask for it in the middle of this video that they would never see. Anyway, moving along, the Zeptocore. This is a fun little device, and my power switch broke. I get to use it for like 2 months. It is absolutely on me. I should have reached out to the company and said, "Hey, my power switch broke. How do I get this fixed or replaced?" Instead, I tossed it in a drawer and haven't done anything with it. But it comes loaded on the SD card with a bunch of loops and like the Amen break and other things. And there's a whole bunch of different. If you really like the pocket operator style of punch-in effects, it is basically that, but for playing loops effectively. There's a little bit more caveats and nuance to it. Unfortunately, I didn't get to play with it enough to hit all of it. But Zeptocore is really fun. Like I would say, go like check it out and just see. It's I think $160, so it's not so expensive. But I haven't done any research to see is it is the power switch better or have other people had this issue? Mine, I just kind of like slid it and it just kind of went sideways, and then the parts came loose. I could probably desolder it and fix it myself, or just jumper it and get it to work, but I've been lazy. But yeah, if you're into pocket operator style punch-in effects, you absolutely should just check this thing out. And the guy that makes this made like this arcade interface that just looks completely crazy and insane and awesome at the same time. Anyway, I can't tell you. I don't know. I can't like highly suggest it, but it was definitely a fun device to play with. Woovebox. I really like the way this thing sounds. It is a it's another one of those like pocket operator inspired by kind of things, but it is far more polyphony, far more sample time, far more effects and sequences, and you can chain things together. It's got a performance mode. It is a insane little thing. Um, it's like almost half the size of a pocket operator. By and large, there. I mean, it's just got that LED display, which is kind of a bummer because I wish that you could see more of kind of what's going on. By and large, though, the interface is very self-consistent. So once you start learning where things are, it's not so bad. And by and large, I would say I haven't really found anything that's multiple levels deep. It's just one level deep for menus. So once you start learning where the amplitude envelope settings are and the filter settings and things like that, they're going to tend to be in the same spot, whether it's for your sequence synthesizers or your samples. The way that you work with sequences is really good for putting things together and chaining them together. So I don't know, like from just a little pocketable device, I think it's great. The only thing I just wish is that the knob wasn't quite so tall, like maybe half height. It probably would be annoying to use for other reasons, but it would make it much more pocketable and easy to kind of or toss in a backpack or something to not worry about it snapping off as much. But the Woovebox is a fun little device, maybe a little bit more expensive than what I would want it to be for kind of the size and what it is on the one hand, but it is incredibly feature rich. And for those of you who are unaware of it, I would say go check it out. The Korg Karma was a device that I picked up entirely because of the Karma effect, which is basically it's beyond a arpeggiator on steroids. Basically, it would pay attention to what you were playing for keys for different types of components and play other parts of the music like as you told it to. So you could tell it to play drum sequences, you could tell it to play bass lines, you could tell it to play orchestral parts, or just play chords for like electronic pianos or whatever. It is really cool. Unfortunately, it's a Korg system. It was basically just the Korg Karma components were, I don't want to say bolted on because that makes it sound worse, but it was added to the Korg Triton Studio setup. So they basically took and made a less expensive version of the Korg Triton Studio and basically pared it down so it didn't have quite as much memory available. and it didn't have as much ROM space available, and they took a few other things out, and then crammed the Karma technology into it. It was really fun to play with, and eventually Stephen Kay, who made the Karma software, he ended up releasing a software package that was on Windows that would allow you to run the Karma Studio. I forget what they called it, but it would allow you to hook it up into the Triton Studio and play the Triton Studio as if it had the Karma technology in it. Then they had the sound packs so that you could use the alternate ROMs and all kinds of other fun stuff. So at that point, I didn't really need the Karma keyboard anymore and sold it. Unfortunately, as anybody that's been in the software space and music space for any length of time would know, the version of Windows that I had, I upgraded, and it no longer supported the Korg Karma software the way I needed it to. And like, I forget if it was drivers for my MIDI device or whatever. Doesn't really matter at this point, but I don't have the software anymore, and I don't have the keyboard. I would love to see the Karma technology show up someplace as a piece of software I could get for like Ableton Live or something, but I'm not going to hold my breath. And maybe we'll see it land one or two more times in some future Korg products, but I don't know. Stay tuned, I guess. Up next, the OP1 is something that I loved and loved to hate, like I think a lot of people do. The tape workflow sounds interesting and intriguing until you start working with it, and then you can very quickly begin to hate it because it is either very fiddly or you're recording things and just destroying whatever you did because of the way it works and operates. And there's no real, there's very little way to undo, and it requires you remembering to do some button combinations that aren't terribly fun. So as a multi-track recorder, I actually think the OP1's pretty good. As a looper, it actually works incredibly well. But as something that you're trying to arrange and organize a track, it's not as fun. I'm just going to say it. It's not as fun. The sequencers on it are passable. They're fine, but like you're not going to do any sequencing on it, really. And not like you would on a lot of other devices. The sampler on it is top tier. The 6 seconds that you get for a single sample that you can bring into the sampler, you can do a lot of cool stuff with it. The synthesizers in it are pretty decent, and it has some pretty fun effects. So I have to say, it's a nice box. I find most people that are gravitating towards it that actually tend to like it more, I've seen in general, are folks that play live instruments, whether it's like a guitar or drums or something else. Like there seems to just be something that they naturally gravitate towards, that more tape style, multi-track recorder style ability to record. And it seems like it works better for them. I personally come from much more of a sequencer background where you're micro editing things and working through how it's going to operate and chopping things up and being able to place them very specifically. And it is much different. So the OP1 will absolutely reward you for playing and practicing a performance and retrying until you get it to be what you want. And the sequencer style will reward you for going through and being very narrowly focused on each specific event and making sure it's landing where you want. These are frequently mutually exclusive ways of operating and making music, so it just kind of makes sense. People that tend to have to practice playing piano live or playing guitar or playing drums live are going to value more what they would probably consider, and I might even consider, more authentic recording style, whereas somebody that's into the sequencing and like getting those little details correct are going to be like, any mistake that shows up is terrible and I want it out. So it's just kind of that push and pull or that tension between mistakes. So why did I like the OP1? And I have kind of that love-hate relationship with it. I really liked it because it pushed me outside of a lot of comfort zones that I had for working with music and working with audio. I made a lot of terrible tracks on the OP1, like just stuff that I absolutely hated. But I also I made enough on it that I actually really liked and I valued. And I was like, there's no way I would ever have done this kind of music on like an MPC or like a sequencer or something, or on like Ableton Live or something. I just would not have done it because I would have had a much different approach for making that music. So, um, I guess my advice would be if you're willing to try something or you think that there's something here to learn out of the OP1, and there is plenty that you can learn, that it's worth the opportunity to get into, I wouldn't probably make that jump from not having that kind of a workflow down to saying get the OP1 field because it's just so much more expensive. But if you can find like a used OP1 that you can either borrow or pick up and just try it, like they seem to be holding value pretty well, and it's not bad to learn some new tricks of the trade in a possibly forcibly antagonistic manner. But I'll be honest, I really did like the OP1. The OPZ here is next. This is a sequencer style workflow, and it has a amazing sequencer coupled with a pretty terrible sampler. It's okay. You get about 64 megs. It's less than 64 megs of sample time, and that is shared for any of your synthesizers or other patches and programs that will use the full 6 megs or 6 seconds of sample time and really load up your OPZ. So as a sampler, it is passable. It is better than what you're going to get out of the KO33, but compared to just about anything else, it's going to struggle to hold its own if you need a lot of samples. That said, I am telling you, and I'll repeat this again, it is an amazing sequencer. It will seem like it's a very shallow sequencer when you get started, and once you like get a little bit of time with it, you can, if you start doing combinations of parameter locks and things, you're going to find a very deep sequencer in here that can do a lot of crazy stuff that you just will have a hard time doing on a lot of other devices. I'm not saying you couldn't do it on all other devices, but it has a lot of interesting stuff in here. This is a great alternative if you're interested in the OPXY, but you either don't have the money or you're in the, I don't know if I'd like the OPXY. The OPZ is so similar to the OPXY, barring the synthesizers and effects being different. And by and large, if you can learn how to work with the OPZ and the parameter locks, it's going to be it's going to transfer, like 95% of that knowledge will transfer over to the OPXY and vice versa. I mean, the OPXY transfers over to the OPZ quite well. All that said, if you can find one for like $300, it's quite nice. It is thin. Be careful about the case bend. Like a little bit of warping should be fine, but if it's starting to look like a U, that's a problem. And the knobs that you turn for the dials, I've seen them pop out. That is no good. And double triggers are absolutely a problem. Anybody that tells you to spray deoxit into the pads doesn't know what the underneath looks like. Underneath the buttons is a plastic film, and the deoxit will not penetrate that, or if it dissolves the plastic, it will cause other problems. I have found that if you just push the button like 40 or 50 times, just keep pushing it, it will kind of help knock off the oxidation off of the button and at least get it to work properly again for a while. So OPZ, super fun. Don't get it for the sampler, but definitely get it for the sequencer and the parameter locks and the punch-in effects. Absolutely fun. Triton Studio, I've still got this. It is my first physical instrument that I picked up. Before this, I was actually running, let's see, what was I first? I first gotten into software like back in the tracker days, which I hardly count because I basically didn't understand what I was looking at, even though I understood hex and all that. I was like, I don't understand how the hex is mapping to notes and all these commands and things. I did play with it and made some music, but it was pretty awful. from there, in college, I got into Fruity Loop Studio, or FL. I got into FL's. Was it even Studio at the end? I don't remember. And then I got into, after getting out of college, I got into Acid DJ for a while and had fun with that. Uh, the Triton Studio, I just saw it. And I just loved the sound of it. I thought it was amazing, like just super futuristic, and had like all the connectivity. It had like CD-ROM drive that was recordable, and a floppy drive, and SCSI, and mountains of input and output. It was a cool device. I ended up picking it up mostly for the sound. I don't particularly, the sequencer's fine. I just don't particularly care for it compared to an MPC style sequencer, but it's fine. It can get the job done. You can do looping and all kinds of other stuff that you would want to do. And it's got 90 up to 96 megabytes of sample time. So I mean, honestly, you can do plenty with it if you should care to. And the MOS board on it for the virtual analog synthesis sounds great. I have thought about selling it off a few times. I mostly have it because my daughter practices piano on it, and she just because she's played on it so much, she just loves the key bed, I guess. But I gotta say, like, I'd probably, if it wasn't for her playing it, I probably would have. Well, I've gotten the Korg VST set that has Triton Studio in it, and I'd probably say that's good enough. Or I would have gotten and moved like all the expansion modules in my Korg Triton Studio into a Triton rack and just taken up less space. But my daughter practices piano, and she's pretty dang good at playing piano, so I don't want to take it away from her. Next one, the OP1 Field. This is a pretty solid upgrade from the OP1. You get stereo tracks, which is nice. It's got a lot of very high quality effects on it, and there's a lot of different ones. You can go from like bit crushing, sample rate reduction, to just like really expansive reverbs. And sound quality just overall is better. I have had the audio board die on it 2 times. The first time I got it repaired under warranty. The second time I had to pay for it to get repaired. That was kind of a bummer. So, I mean, I've spent a fair bit of money on it, especially considering it doesn't get as much use as the amount of money I've spent on it. So I think I'm keeping it around. I don't think I'm planning on selling it or anything, but in the looper space, I really like it, and it does pair incredibly well with the OPXY. The two of them to play together where you're just using both a looper workflow and a sequencer workflow, really fun. I dig it. It breaks my brain sometimes, and I need to practice it more, but I don't know. I gotta say I like the OP1 Field. I think it's a great device. As far as the Roland P6 goes, if you don't have an SP404 Mark II, but you want some of those sounds, I would say the Roland P6 is almost a best of for the effects. It's missing a few things that I might have personally wanted to have seen on there, but since I have the SP404 Mark II, I can say I don't miss I don't miss the effects from the SP404 Mark II, and I'm just focusing on using the P6. The P6 is super portable. The sample engine is night and day better than what you can get on the SP404 Mark II. It's got a broader time stretching or pitch shifting range, not time stretching. You can pitch shift much further, which is amazing, and just what the SP404 Mark II really needs to learn how to do, but it's not going to. You've got a proper ADSR, which allows you to really apply anything that you, pretty much anything that you want to. You can then record like very short tones from a synthesizer. You can use the P6 as a synthesizer. The granular engine on it it's good. It's above passable. Like it's something that I would say when you get the right sound in there and you get the right settings, it can sound really good. It's just not as deep a sound as you might get out of a more dedicated granular synthesizer, but it is very good, especially for a portable device. And the sequencer on the P6 is much, much better than the SP404 Mark II for a number of reasons. But by and large, just the way it works and some of the options you have allow you to really get a lot more out of it. That said, we're missing motion record, and I really do wish that Akai, or not Akai, I wish Roland would, Akai can't do this. I wish Roland would allow us to do MIDI control over the effect settings to be able to turn an effect on and off and adjust the control knob parameters for it. That would make it the ultimate portable sampler effect box in my mind. It would, hands down, it would just crush it. Since it doesn't have that, it's still very high up there. This is something that I would say would be a second, possibly solid choice as a sampler for anybody just in the market for it. And if you're looking for something for a kid to have and use for a sampler that you're like, a couple $100, yeah, it's more than a PO33, but the P6 is absolutely another solid option. Next up, the MPC 1000. I really cut my teeth on the MPC 1000. Got it like when it came out, and as soon as JJOS came out, it was just so eye-opening to see what a device could do. I mean, he effectively turned the MPC 1000 and the junky firmware that worked and was basically passable and did a lot to make it practically an MPC 4000. It just has so many solid updates, features, and other things that it's impossible to not mention JJOS. Like if you get an MPC 1000 or an MPC 2500 and it doesn't have JJOS on it, just understand that you are getting a glimmer of what your MPC could do. You should go check out JJOS and see what you can do. The device itself is it's got, I mean, 100 for me, 128 megs of memory tends to be plenty. I almost never, like, I usually don't, unless I'm just loading up expansions or something. But if I'm just sampling myself, I'm usually not using much more than a minute worth of audio anyway. So 128 megs is perfectly fine for me. Be able to do track mutes and just clone things. It's just a very seamless, fast workflow for sampling and for sequencing. It's got a good amount of connectivity for being the center of your studio. If you wanted to have other external samplers or synthesizers or effect boxes and units, as I said earlier, for a very long time I had the MPC 1000 paired with an Access Virus C and the Korg Kaoss Pad 2, and was able to make a ton of music with it and just have a complete blast. So for me, like, I don't know, like, am I biased to it? This is actually my nostalgia box. I don't pull it out super often, but when I do, I just love playing with it. The MPC 1000 is a great system to work with in my mind, and I would suggest anybody that gets the opportunity to play with it and have some fun. Up next, the Organelle. This is very modular. What is it? It uses there's a programming language, Pure Data, if I remember correctly. The Organelle allows you to program up your own patches, and you can basically assign whatever you want to the four knobs. You can set up menus underneath it, and you get a keyboard. And people have done incredibly interesting, unique patches for it. You can use the Organelle as an effects box. It can become a sampler, it can become a synth. It's basically whatever you want to load up for a patch. I ended up selling it off just because I don't know, I get to a point where I'm like, I have way too much gear and I'm not using stuff. I should sell it off, is one thing that happens. The other thing that will happen is, especially lately, if I want to get a new device, I'll just sell off whatever I have that is available and I'm not using to basically pay for getting the next device. I don't get any of this stuff for free. I almost never get any discounts on anything other than when I can do my own coupon shopping. And yeah, I'm not getting like any loaners or anything. So for me, whatever it is that I invest into it, I know I'm already not getting anything out of it really. I'm not trying to do the goofy ad revenue videos or anything else. So I get whatever I get. So the Organelle is just a device that I really enjoyed. I'm keeping an eye on the Organelle S2 because I may pick that up, although I still might wait another revision just to kind of see where they go with it. I'd, I'd like to see having velocity sensitive keys and the M version where you can battery power it and have a speaker on it kind of feels more up my alley. I seem to have this weird obsession with more mobile devices lately, so that I can toss it in a backpack or go outside with it or something. But yeah, I mean, the Organelle is something that I think is very interesting. It's a kind of an exploratory device. It's kind of unique. It's a little goofy and quirky. If you haven't checked one out, definitely go check out some videos. People are doing really cool stuff with it. The Polyon Tracker Mini, I was able to get a hold of and play with. I had the M8 already. I thought I would like it, but as soon as I got my hands on it, there was some friction with it that I didn't care for. One was I really wanted to be able to touch the screen to be able to point the cursor where I wanted to enter data, and it is not a touch sensitive screen, so you cannot do that. And then I also found it kind of weird that as you're using the arrows to move around for going up, down, left, and right, that when you go left and right, it's just changing you across tracks instead of having you go across note, instrument, FX1, and FX2. It's fine. It's a design choice, and I don't think it's a bad design choice. It just didn't work for me in my workflow. I also suspect that I would probably be more into liking the Polyon Tracker Mini if I had played with the Tracker or the Tracker Plus first and gotten my head wrapped around some of the, I guess, nomenclature and ways that they go about rendering out data and entering values and things. So I am not writing off the Tracker or even the Tracker Mini, honestly, as something that I would never go back to or use. It just wasn't for me at the time, and I tried using it for 3 or 4 months and just decided it was better to move on. The biggest pain point for me was the TRS MIDI in and out are TRS type B instead of A. I know it's a thing you have to worry about sometimes, but that was probably the thing that I was the more irritated about, honestly. I was actually thinking about taking it apart and resoldering the jacks to be TRS-A, but since I sold it off, it doesn't really matter. But yeah, I understand why people like it. As I said, it just wasn't the device for me. Up next, we got the Bento, and I've been playing around with this for a bit. I haven't kept up on the latest update, although I understand that it has some better sampling features and functionality. What did exist when I was using it, I really enjoyed what I would say is the immediacy of the looper. The synths that are on there, I like. I think it's got some good synths. I really enjoyed the way that the sequencer allowed to record the tracks, whether it was notes or automation and things. Felt really natural. I did have some issues with some double triggering on some of the pads, and I don't know if the case is too tight or I feel like I have a pretty I understand different play styles for different pad types from working between the MPC line and the SP line and other devices that have pads. And no matter what I did, I felt like I was frequently getting a double trigger, which was a little annoying. When I get back to playing with it, I would love to just kind of see what the feel of it is again, see if maybe that changes my mind. The other piece that kind of, I'll say, irritated me, it's not like that bad, but the audio in and out in MIDI in and out on the back of the device was basically what I would say is it was like stacked. You couldn't really, like, the way it's set up right now, it would be perfect for being able to set up like FX loops for audio effects. because you have multiple ins and outs, have like a dedicated channel for an FX loop or for the MIDI. Be able to have multiple inputs or outputs going out, but it does, at least in the firmware version I was using, I couldn't figure out, or maybe you were unable to route audio and MIDI around the way that I wanted to. I I suspect that there will be some updates that would put that functionality in place, and I would love to see it, so that I think that would kind of help turn this into a different device and give it some features and functionality that a lot of other devices in this size don't have. All that said, I think this is about the most efficient use of space that you're going to get. Like, this is what I think a lot of people are, when they say I want an MPC Mini, this is what I think they're really looking for. Although maybe they're looking for a screenless device, but for having a touchscreen and 8 knobs that are endless encoders and having transport control buttons and 16 pads, this is very well, I put it in the very well thought out and designed, and I think it just needs some more time baking the firmware. All that said, it's hard for me to 100% advise the Bento, only because for me, there's a lot of things I think it's going to be able to do in the future that I would love to see it do. And I would never tell somebody to buy something based on features and functionality that you hope are there. So I understand where the Bento is. I understand where I'd like it to be. And I hope that it continues to develop, because I think it's a platform that will be very, if it can get where I want to see it, it will be very portable. It will be very interesting to see what people can do with it. And I mean, there's already people going out and playing live shows and things with it. So it definitely has the chops necessary to get a lot of cool stuff done. The biggest hurdle for me has just been, I tend to try and avoid using the computer any more than I have to for doing audio and music work beyond arrangement these days. And I didn't want to have to keep pulling the SD card out to, load audio instead of just recording and sampling in or do other stuff. So again, I just need to check out the currently new version of firmware to have a more informed opinion on it. And it looks like they're still developing. So I think there's a lot of cool stuff coming. So I would say for anybody out there, keep an eye on it. A lot of good stuff for it already, and fingers crossed, more to come. Next up, push 3. The MPE implementation is amazing on this thing. I loved it. I got this at like day 1 or whatever. As soon as it was announced, I ordered it, and then was fairly soon after that told that my position, along with like 900 other people, were told that we'd been let go. And I was like, I'm going to use this for as long as I can, just get some experience with it. But ultimately ended up returning it, because I was like, I'm going to do the responsible thing, and I'm going to return it to get the $2,000+ back from ordering the standalone mode. So I really liked the device. I did not like the mushy buttons. The buttons were mushy as heck, and it drove me absolutely nuts. But maybe that's on me. Maybe if I got it again, I would have, or if I'd kept it, I would have gotten used to it. I felt that the knobs sliding left and right and then not up and down was a little weird for like the jog wheels. Another one, probably could have gotten used to it, but just feel like a slightly inconsistent design. The widescreen display, it was fine. Definitely got a lot of the information you wanted, but I also felt like it didn't do some of the patches justice. So if somebody hadn't gone through and done the work to create the 8 knob group or something, so that you didn't have to go deep dive into like different effect sections or parameter settings, it was fine. Beyond that, though, really good clip workflow. Bummer that there's no arranger on it, but if you're just looking to record clips, I think it's an excellent workflow. I've been a long time Ableton user. Everything with it made sense to me, and I was able to work with it. I kind of would like to get a push 3 again at some point, or just mess with one to see what's happened over the last year and a half or 2 years since I wasn't able to, since I returned it. I have to imagine that there's been a lot of amazing updates for it, so maybe someday I'll get a chance to check it out and have some more thoughts and opinions on it. But as it is, it just happened to be the timing of things for why I didn't keep it and get more experience with it. but from everything I've seen for people using it out on YouTube and other places, it looks pretty solid and fun to use. Up next, the Akai Force. I actually got a question on this one, which somebody was asking if I liked it so much and rated it so highly, why'd I sell it? This is another one that's pretty easy to answer. The Push 3 got announced, and I was like, oh, I'm an Ableton guy, and there's no reason for me to have a Force and a Push 3, so I sold the Force. I then got the Push 3, and after getting let go and deciding it was better to keep the $2,000+ in my pocket, I also figured it was worth me keeping the few $100 or whatever I got for selling the Force off in my pocket instead of buying another Force. And since then, I've been kind of trying to find Force-ish ways to use the SP404 Mark II, which are okay. The firmware for the MPC 3 has, we got more modern clips, which is kind of bringing over the Force clip style using the Pro Pack if you go buy that. So the necessity for a Force at this point in my workflow for doing clips is fairly low. Though that being said, if a Force successor did come out, I certainly might consider it. I also have just found I feel like I tend to like the MPC focused workflow with some Force stuff bolted on a bit better than the Force workflow with some MPC components added into it that aren't fully there. I feel like I like the MPC workflow a little bit more. Given all that, though, the Force really does shine as something where you basically can set it up so you have 3 different interfaces going on at the same time. You can get the top screen to have one set of functionality where it's operating in one way. Then you have the Q links that can be operating a different set of parameters, and then you can have your pads on the bottom operating on a different set. It's very powerful, very, very performative and performance focused. And I've seen people just do some completely crazy and amazing stuff with the Force that they've clearly spent a lot of time thinking through what it is they want to do with it and get out of it and just have a good time and put on a great show. So yeah, for sure, the Force is, I think, a still completely valid piece of hardware to get into. It's just unfortunate circumstances of some of the stuff going on in my life at the time that is why I don't have it, and I just never got around to getting it, and kind of just things have moved on from where they are. But the Force is still something that's in my mind, and if it's an either or, for me, it's going to be MPC, but I can absolutely see how for other people it might be Force instead, because by and large they have a very similar set of synthesizers. They overlap with the expansions completely, and the plugin effects by and large are the same. So if you have one, you can at least understand what you might like in the other one, and they overlap so much that if you have limited budget, like a lot of people do, you're probably not going to need both. Ableton Move. This is, I don't know, I really like it. For the price, I think it's going to be, I put this in the same category for the Move as the MPC-1 and the SP404 Mark II. They're all in that $400-ish, $400 to $500 price range. They all have plenty of breadth of features, whether it's FX, synthesizers, sampling functionality, sequencing. They all have like some things that they do better than the others, and they have some things that they do worse. I think getting any one of them is completely valid, and the Move just has a great sequencer. There are a few features and functions I think it's missing, but by and large, great sequencer, very good sampler. The synth sounds great that it's in it. I'm hoping they bring more over, and as long as you're willing to or understand how to work within the 4-track limit that it has, you can absolutely get so much work done with it. The 32 pads are a good compromise between a 16 pad play style and giving you some chromatic notes to play without having a full keyboard. The Move is absolutely worth looking to. And it integrates incredibly well with Ableton Live to control it as well. So I don't know. It's very high up on my list of things I would suggest people to consider and look at if they're looking into getting into music or if you don't have one. And Ableton's been doing a great job of every few months putting out some new updates, and you just never quite know what they're going to get. Obviously, you're keeping up with what's going on in the beta releases. You'll know, but uh, uh, they've been doing good. They've been hammering out bugs and just adding very welcome features and functionality. It is a fresh breath, so it's cool. We're getting close to the end of the list here. We got the OPXY. I know there's a lot of people that love hating on it. From time to time when I stream using the OPXY or post up a video with it, I get the general teenage engineering hate. I think there's just as many crazily priced uh, products out there. So I don't know. I get it. People are mad because they want it and can't afford it, or they just want it's just fun and trendy to hate on it. But cool, whatever. It has an absolutely excellent sequencer. The sampler on it is a much needed set of improvements for sampling and multi-sampling and setting up key groups. You can do all of it very smoothly within the OPXY for things that are far more difficult to do on the OP1 field or the OP1, or you just wouldn't even want to do on the OPZ. It is a great set of improvements overall. I still think that the having only two FX slots is pretty terrible. It makes for a lot of sound design compromises that you have to make if you're trying to produce music just on it by itself, or it's meaning that you're going to have to spend the time to go through sample, resample, use offboard effects to resample back into the device to do that. It can be a little bit of a headache, but on the other hand, that's kind of the price you're going to have to pay for a device this size. You're paying the money and the premium because it is so small and feature rich and packed with functionality. And because it's so small, there're just compromises that have to be made. Given all that, though, I do think Teenage Engineering's done a pretty good job of squashing bugs. There were quite a few when it first came out. They've been knocking things down. They've been dealing with some of the storage issues and getting things together. I have a long list of things I hope that they do. I don't want to turn this into a wish list, though. So, from a general standpoint, OPXY pairs very well with the OP1. I actually think it pairs very well with a lot of other devices, over USB or just over the TRS jacks. And I don't know. I just have fun working with it, playing with it, and tracking, sequencing, and arranging with it. It's overall a great little device. MPC-X, if you have not had an opportunity to play with 16 Q-Links, and having the OLED display as well is very nice, but if you haven't had 16 Q-Links in one shot, it is very eye-opening, especially if you're going to be doing any auto sampling or if you're setting up drum programs or key groups or anything else. This is when I had this, I did a ton of sampling off of the S950 and off of different synthesizers, and had a blast doing it. I posted a fair bit of that content up for people to go download, and it's very quick because you have just different levels of granularity for editing start and endpoints, or if you're working on patches, you have all four banks. Like otherwise on like the MPC Live or on the MPC One, you have to like keep hopping through the banks. It is so much faster that you just wouldn't believe. And the larger screen is very nice. That said, I hit a point where I had the MPC 500, I had the MPC 1000, I had the MPC Live and the MPC Live 2 and the MPC X. And I did not want to have an MPC museum because or even an Akai museum because I had all the Akai S950, S1000, and Z8. I was like, my wife will be unhappy and telling me to get rid of some stuff if I don't start doing it. The MPC X and the original Live were the two that I decided to sell off, and I kept the MPC 1000, and actually I think around that time I sold off my third MPC 500, but it doesn't matter. It is a great device. I am keeping an eye out certainly post MPC Live 3 coming out to see what the successor looks like, because it is a monster of a device. The integrated mixer is very nice, and I'm hoping that they maybe even look at getting 3 or 4 channels, stereo channels worth of mixer into it. The MPCE, updates will be nice. And as I said, the 16 Q links, I would love to see Akai put out a 16 Q link bank that we could hook up to like the MPC Live, because I would do that immediately. But given that I don't think we're going to get that, I will probably figure out how to sell off gear and get an updated MPC-X when it eventually arrives, or when things settle down and there's some sales or something. I dig it. The SP404 Mark II, as I said with the Ableton Move, it is a perfectly acceptable first device. It's a good device to get into. Excellent effects, excellent sampling and resampling, and the sequencer, unfortunately, is passable. Motion recording, I'm going to keep complaining about this, is complete garbage. There are so many problems with the motion recording that I've tried to reach out to get addressed, and it drives me nuts. But this is, I don't want to be sandbagging on the SP404 Mark II because it's so easy, only because I've spent so much time making videos and writing about it and everything else. It is an excellent device. If you are looking to sample or do effects with it, like if you've got the money, just get it. There's no reason not to get it. It set the way for what I consider to be important connectivity to other devices over USB-C. It works as a USB device, and you can still operate it as if it's a device. I think the Koala stuff that they did is really interesting. I don't have Serato or any of the other applications that they've put in place for compatibility, so I can't speak to how well those work, and I'm probably not going to buy them. And nobody's reached out to be like, hey, do you want a license or a trial or anything? So I'm probably not going to bother with that stuff. But by and large, it is absolutely worth getting. I wouldn't hold your breath for any new updates. Roland did a great job doing multiple updates over the years and adding effects and fixing bugs and just adding like the new features and things. So there's a ton there. If you want to learn anything about it, check out my YouTube channels. Just search for different topics. There's over 1,000 videos, or go grab the guide. Join my Discord. Happy to talk with anybody about it, and still trying to help people out with workflows and things of that nature. So I can't say don't get it. It's a great device, especially for what it is. MPC Live 2. Given that the bottom of the price floor has kind of fallen out of it with the MPC Live 3 showing up, whether you get the MPC Live or MPC Live 2, they are both excellent devices, and you'll probably find them in the sub $600 to maybe even, they might even start hitting like $300 or $400 price range. Given that it is basically a full DAW in the box, and the only thing that you're sacrificing is really the RAM and CPU. And you can always resample things down to either audio tracks, or just resample some loops and then turn them into samples or loops that you can play within the device. There's plenty of synthesizers. There's all kinds of stuff. It is probably my favorite. Like the MPC Live series is probably my favorite set of devices, and I cannot suggest people get it enough. Obviously, there's plenty of problems. Touchscreen, not so great. Hard to know how much more support that Akai is going to give it now that the new CPU and chipset's coming out. But I'm hoping. A lot of people were down on Akai, saying, "Oh, they've been saying this is the end of the support train since the Live got discontinued." It's still be able to run the same updates as the Live 2 and the X, and sort of the MPC Live 3. Obviously, there's like some differences that's allowing the Live 3 to run more plugins and things, but you know, I cannot say enough about. Check it out. If you haven't, if you're into the MPC workflow, cool. The firmware 3 has really streamlined a lot of stuff that I can complain about it, but it's making it easier for new users to get involved and learn the system. So it's quite comprehensive and a great DAW in a box. MPC Live 3, I know a lot of people think this thing looks ugly. It looks weird. It's dense. There's just so many buttons on it. I am still getting used to it. I cannot say that I would put this. I wouldn't advise people get the Live 3 over the Live 2 or Live or 1 or even the X. mostly because I just haven't had the time with it to fully know it. The button placement and the changing of some of the shortcuts is driving me nuts because I'm having to relearn some of the things for how I would get around and navigate the MPC Live 3 versus the Live 2. Given that, though, everything's pretty logically laid out and makes sense how things are grouped and clustered. So for anybody that is looking for that, I'd say it's great. The transport controls to be able to move around a note or bar, quarter note or bar is great. I love that. It makes a lot of the activities and things that I was doing in the past much faster, so I don't have to go to the data wheel to go scroll through my timeline. The MPC ePads are really expressive, and I've kind of told some other folks it is almost think about it as if it's like if you've set it up this way, it's almost like you have about 25 touch points per pad. Obviously, it's a more variable than that, but you can kind of feel your way through it where you kind of can tell it's moving, whether you're changing like a filter cutoff or pitch or something else. You can get a lot of expressiveness out of a single pad with just a single sample on it. And if you spend the time to set up, multiple layers or other things, you can get like some very crazy stacks going together. So I would check that out. For me, the really killer thing besides the MPCE was the USB-C support, which you can hook up a computer similar like you can with the SP404 Mark II that really paved the way for this in my mind. But being able to use it as a device while you're still actually running the instrument is amazing. And having 24 tracks of audio in and out plus 32 channels of MIDI is really game changing. It allows you to just hook up like an iPad or your phone or a computer to the MPC Live 3. Like you could just have the MPC Live 3 and your phone and have an insane amount of processing power and effects and other things to put stuff together. So, as I said, I mostly can't suggest it super highly compared to the other MPCs just because I haven't had enough time with it. It is way more expensive, and you can just get so much value if you decide you want to go into a used MPC. So I would say check out the old ones. Really be clear with yourself if this would be a gas purchase where you're like, I just need the gear and other stuff, or if you're legitimately going to actually take advantage of using it. I knew I was for a number of reasons, and it's helping me kind of reduce what I have for hardware on my desk here, but I don't know that that's going to be the case for everybody. And this is the last one is the Dirty Wave M802. If you like or understand the tracker workflow, absolutely check it out. Go get the headless, go get a Teensy and install the M8 software on it and just get an SD card and go play around with it. This is my go-to travel buddy at this point. It is very fast. It is very quick for setting up different patterns and arranging. Its MIDI integration is both top-notch and kind of terrible at the same time. It's great for sending MIDI out, and especially if you're willing to do 16th notes, it's basically equivalent to 24. It is 24 parts per quarter note. If you understand what that means, it means you only have 24 different places in time where you can drop it. You can play around with BPM and get more parts per quarter note, but that's at the cost of needing to do math and keep more things in your head as you're doing it, which can be fine and it can be annoying. So just a consideration. But if you want to use it as an instrument, it can work fine. But if you want to record the MIDI from like a touchpad or something, it's okay. But again, like if you have to just understand it's 24 parts per quarter note. Otherwise, you're really just going to want to record audio or resample audio into it if you need to get more granular than that restriction, and just record something as a loop or over a timeline or something. So there are absolutely ways to do it. It's just an incredibly powerful platform for doing things, and it's amazing that effectively one person's doing almost all the work to design, manufacture, code, and produce this stuff. Trash 80, you are a legend, and thank you for all your work you do. Anyway, yeah, as I said, that's it. I didn't want to put in the wish list of stuff here I have, though. If folks find this interesting or helpful, I'll I don't think I will go do like a deep dive of everything like this, but maybe I'll group stuff together in the future if I have something come through. I will drop the notes for the links for the slide deck and the spreadsheet into the description for folks that want to get it. But yeah, this is my thoughts overall. The order is, as I said, it's more for least functional to most functional, sort of. um, but yeah, like if folks are just looking for what's my advice for things to get, I would say my favorite devices that I would suggest checking out are going to be like the MPCs, the Dirty Wave M8, the SP404 Mark II, the Ableton Move. I think I'd keep an eye on watching the Bento, the OPZ for folks that are interested in it. Like that's another one I might say keep an eye on. Like it's going to probably keep getting cheaper. I've seen them as low as $300. The I mean, the older MPCs are just going to go through the floor. So if like right now is probably the time or in a little bit to go get some. I don't think the OP1 in general is going to go down. It's probably going to stick around $800 to $900 mark. So kind of expensive still. Um, I I can't suggest anybody to get into Eurorack just because it's so expensive, but I will tell you it is as fun as you want it to be, but it can become a problem where you're just collecting stuff. Um, yeah, I don't know. Right now, if for folks that have looked at the spreadsheet and seen it, the only device I'm waiting to show up right now is the TR1000. That will probably complete my desk setup here, and I will start trying to get some videos together just talking about how I get things set up between the MPC, the TR1000, the Virus, and the Iridium, with probably the SP404 Mark II and the Kaoss Pad 3 as an effect device. So plenty of stuff to go check out and do. Any of you that are still sticking around, if you want to help support, if you like this content and you want to support it, drop a comment. Let me know what you liked or didn't like. I'm happy to take thoughts. These are just my opinions, so I can't tell you like anything in here is perfect. I may have some specific details wrong. Anybody that's interested in helping out, supporting me on Patreon, feel free. If you want to join in on mixing some tracks, come check out the uncarved block stuff I'm doing on Discord. And beyond that, I would just say keep making music, keep having fun. Remember, if it sounds good, it is good. And peace.